Hello, and welcome to Under 1000. My name's Thomas Flower, and each episode I'll read you a new piece of flash fiction. All of the stories are 1000 words or less. Today, I'll be reading Forget Me Not. Being lodged so firmly in the public eye was tiring. People thought this life was glamour and excitement, and she had worked hard for many years to maintain that illusion. But behind the closed doors, when she could be alone and be truthful with herself, she recognized that a life spent constantly giving people what they wanted was not one where she could make choices that she was happy with herself. Of course, there were those who decided themselves to pursue this life, and that was all well and good for adults who wanted fame regardless of the costs they knew it might bring. But the thing was, she had thought only a few months ago, it was unclear whether the choice was really given to her in any meaningful way at the beginning. There was an ambiguity, an eternal question mark, hanging over the entirety of her career as to who had wanted this life for her, and who had stood to gain by it. Certainly, she remembered expressing interest in making music as a young child. She remembered feeling excitement when her first record was released, and feeling proud as her parents detailed just how much money was being saved up for her when she turned of age. But had she ever really wanted this? Could she have chosen this, not knowing then what it might bring? She couldn't say clearly. It was all a hazy and confusing swirl in her head. Whatever the answer there, one thing was clear to her. She definitely didn't want this life anymore. The public, so ravenous for her youth, talent and beauty as a child, had now grown equally ravenous for her downfall as an adult. It was hard to pinpoint just exactly when everything had changed, but there was no denying that it had. Every move she made now, no matter how well-intentioned she thought she was being, seemed to be interpreted in bad faith, making her a ripe target for mockery and derision. It didn't help, of course, that she, growing angry and frustrated with the constant provocation, had taken to spurring the tabloids on, playing a pointless and futile game of chicken with them, which she realized only too late she would never be able to win. Now, after the praise, the anger, the mockery and the madness, she just wanted to be done with it all. Her only desire was to leave the public eye and to be forgotten about. And yet, she wondered if such a thing was still possible at all. Through her early days of international touring, she had come to see just how beloved she was across the world. As fame had curdled into notoriety for her, she began to wonder whether this was a global situation, or just one fueled by attitudes in her home country. But now, it tainted her thoughts of escaping to another place and starting fresh. Where in the world could she go, after all, where they wouldn't recognize her face? Was it a naive dream? To run away and live the simple life somewhere she could be free of the knowledge of her own public image? Perhaps. Not only did it seem unlikely now, but it was also the very fame she now despised which had furnished her with the lifestyle she had become accustomed to. She told herself she would be comfortable and happy with a life of less means and little luxury. But was that true? The very thing she now yearned to run towards was something that others seemed desperate to escape from. She knew that there were those who would trade positions with her in a heartbeat, if only they could. But the thought she always returned to in her head, over and over again, was that she had not chosen this life, or, at the very least, she had chosen this life when she didn't realize what the choice she was making would entail. And for all the wonderful things which fame had brought her, for all the money and clothes and cars, it was the kind of privilege that came at such a high cost to her sanity. and one that she never knew she had to pay until it was all too late. Still, where could she go? It was hardly as though she could turn up in a small town and start working at the supermarket. Her face trapped her in this bind. It was a form of identification that she could never put down, never escape from. She thought briefly about the prospect of changing it drastically, a wild flight of fancy that led her to the idea of radical surgery, faking her own death and then running away into the arms of an unknowing village. But she knew it was only a fantasy. She would never really do that. Sighing, she arose from the sofa, feeling guilty once again for thinking such things at all. She had so much. She had everything she could have dreamed of as a child. She owned all those material objects that so many others craved and cried over. She should be happy with what she had. She should. But she wasn't. Unable to resolve the problem in her mind, she tried to move on to other things. There were the photos for a new perfume launch to do, and then a book signing later this week, and she still needed to do her exercises for the day, and on and on and on it went. She didn't know if she would ever escape it. She didn't know if she was right to want to. All she knew was that she now hungered only to be forgotten, just like once she had hungered only to be known. Thank you for listening to Under 1000. I'm your host, Thomas Flower. To follow the show online, look for Under 1000 Pod on Twitter or Facebook, or check out the website at under1000pod.com. If you'd like to support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/under1000pod, where you can sign up to read each month's stories in advance, as well as to have a thank you be read during these credits. The theme music is an instrumental version of In Between Days by Nick Tate and the Sharks. To hear the full song and more from the same EP, go to Nick Tate, NICTATE, and thesharks.bandcamp.com, or search for them on your favourite streaming platform. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and that you'll join me again next time for some more super short fiction.